Hello and thank you for joining me today. Well, this is the Tuesday, May the 24th edition of our video devotionals. We appreciate you being with us today, and we do call this Thankful Tuesday, and we all do have much to be thankful for, and I'm especially thankful that yesterday and overnight, and really I guess starting Sunday evening when we got home from church, we ended up getting about 1.75 inches of rain, and boy, the garden is really loving that. And so I'm thankful for the rain amongst many other things we should be thankful for. But that's just one thing, but thankful for the rain, and God provided that. So we're going to go ahead and jump into things here today. We were in the book of Nehemiah yesterday. Today we'll be also in the book of Nehemiah, the very last chapter, and then tomorrow we'll be in the book of Esther. But Nehemiah is one of my favorite leaders of all the Bible. He's not spoken of as much as some of the others that you hear about, but he did a wonderful job in rebuilding the wall of Jerusalem and getting Jerusalem where it could be inhabited, and just kind of getting things organized and having to fix some things that needed to be fixed, both in the spiritual sense and in the physical sense. But before we jump into it, let me just say again, thank you for all who watch the videos and the responses that we get, and we want to continue to be a blessing to you, okay? All right, so I'm just going to read one verse here, but bear in mind when we get to this last chapter, Nehemiah has had to return back to Jerusalem, and there's a lot of things that just need to be fixed, a lot of things that were just out of order, and he starts to do that. But he says here something unique that's really not, doesn't really seem to be something you found within the entire book. He said here in chapter 13, verse 14, he says, "Remember me, O my God, concerning this, and wipe not out my good deeds that I have done for the house of my God and for the offices thereof." It just seemed unusual, all that Nehemiah had done, a lot of great things. We know the Lord used him in a mighty way, and yet we find out here through, obviously, the Holy Spirit wanting us to know this about Nehemiah, that Nehemiah is greatly concerned, and he speaks almost from a point where he's reaching out to God and hoping God's going to remember what he's done and don't wipe it out, he said. And to me, it would be the furthest thing that I would think concerning what he's done. And, Nehemiah, of course, is a man, but he followed the Lord, did the right thing. But for him to say that, so I guess, God put that in the Bible for us to see that and to see our humanity, to see the weakness of man, and to see yes, our dependence upon God, and how we hope that God sees what we do, and we know that He does. But there's something about us, I guess, that says when we do things, we want God to acknowledge, we want God to remember what we've done, and to kind of make it stand. And if God doesn't make it stand, then no one's going to make it stand. But here's Nehemiah. We're seeing him. The Holy Spirit allows us to see that. Two other times he talks about remember me, God. In fact, we'll go ahead and read this one too. At the very last thing that he says in Nehemiah here, the very last verse, it says remember me, oh my God, for good. It's almost like, he's done all these things, and he's saying, God, I just want you to see that I've done it for you, and would you remember that? And I think there's nothing wrong with doing that, obviously, but it just seems like all that he did, and of course, how God used him, that it seems like Nehemiah seemed to be a little bit down or a little bit concerned that perhaps God wouldn't, but we know that he does. And so I'm glad the Holy Spirit put that in there so that we can see Nehemiah, a great leader, and yet we also see the fact that he's a man, but God used him, and God can use you, and God can use me. So I hope that helps you today. We're going to be out a little bit earlier today, and we'll see you tomorrow on what we call Winning Wednesday. Hope you have a great rest of the day. Be safe and healthy, and we'll see you tomorrow.